excited about like the Krebs cycle, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is great! This is so exciting!" It was the first time he discovered it in all of his lectures. And I was just sitting with the chair of my department the other day, and I was talking about a research paper I'll be talking about here, and the words, "Oh, this is great," came out of my mouth. So I can finally kind of understand how he felt. So I want to say thank you to all of you for listening to me talk about something that I think is great. So I'm going to be talking about motivation, direction, and modifying the environment for clients to reach their goals. So what I'm going to be doing is providing a narrative for behavior change based on some research papers, books I've read, my personal experience, and then interviews I've done with people that have kind of made major life changes.
I think, Justin, you might want to point towards the projector up there. Over here?
Here.
Over here, to my voice?
This way.
No.
There we go.
Okay. Outline. Oh, my shoulders can be tired of Hey, Ricky, you just want to click? No. You can take over here. Okay, yeah. We'll just go to like the whole end of the slide. Yeah, so the outline of today's presentation, we're going to be talking about identifying change talk, drawing out motivation, directing our clients, and then environmental modifications to make change more likely. So some resources about what I'm going to be talking about. Here's some books, research papers, videos. So I draw a lot of what I'm talking about from the book Switch. That kind of actually is like the outline for what I'm talking about. And when I talk about the environment, a great book by Dr. Brian Lansing is Mind is Eating. Influencer, crucial conversations, crucial accountability, motivational interviewing, nudge, and then actually what first introduced me to this topic was compliance solution videos from Precision Nutrition. If you haven't seen those, they're online, they're free. It's about an hour all together, and it's just great. So I want to talk a little bit about why this interests me, a little bit of my own background. So I think I could probably trace it back to 10th grade when I was a fat kid, and I saw the movie Super Size Me, and I was like, oh wow, McDonald's is not good for me. Maybe I shouldn't have that every day. So I cut out McDonald's, made the basketball team, so I was practicing about 2 hours a day, then we have games on the weekend. And well, actually, I'm like the same weight right now as I was in 10th grade, so I was like 190, and I had never touched the weight before, so I enjoyed it. When I got to college, I wasn't really exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something that involved exercise. So after my first semester, I got into the kinesiology department. My major was called fitness development. It was all based on personal training, so that's kind of the whole outline of the major. And basically my goal was to help people get healthier. Good. So this is someone that I started working with January 1st. His name's Victor. And since then, he's actually lost about 100 pounds. I think it's actually over 100 pounds at this point. And I want to talk about some of the things that he said to me about why he was ready to change. But first, we go to the next slide. First, I want to talk about what the research says about people that have changed. So this is like a 20-year-old narrative research paper by Heatherton. And what they said was changers experience both focal or critical events that can be considered the straw that broke the camel's back. They said people who changed their behavior associated that behavior with negative emotion and suffering, as well as disadvantages of the status quo. People who changed were also more likely to seek out help. And this had to do a lot with like drugs, alcohol, smoking, but you can apply some of these things to weight loss as well. So I asked Victor, I said, why did you, after he was like 70 pounds down, and I just want to know, like I should have asked in the beginning. I said, why do you want to change? Why did you decide it was time to change? He was overweight his whole entire life. He's 24 years old. So why was now the exact moment that he wanted to make that change? So he said, I underlined the parts of his story that corresponded exactly to that research paper from 1994. He said, I got a physical in December, and my doctor gave me a really good talk about what I'm doing to myself. I never really drink, and I've never really done any type of drug because I knew what it would do to me. And yet here I am, eating myself into an early grave. I'm 24 and I'm having a hard time doing the things that I love to do, so disadvantages of the status quo, negative emotion and suffering. My doctor was actually really good, gave me a wake-up call, gave me to do a sleep study because when I was worried about being overweight, I was wondering if I had sleep apnea. I was extremely embarrassed to have to do this at the age of 24, and when I did, I said starting January 1st, I'm going to start a diet, and hopefully this time finish up. It's 7 months now, and I'm still going strong. And that was about a month and a half ago he said that. He was about like the 80-pound mark, and now he's over the 100-pound mark. So you go to the next one. And I asked him too, I said, so he was at 240, and I said, when was the last time you were at that weight? And he said, dude. He said, dude, that's awesome that you asked that. I had a physical on Friday, and I asked him for my weight chart so I could go back and see the last time I weighed this. He said, I've always been around 262 to 270. That's what I weighed in high school. And I couldn't find anything around 240 pounds. Thank God my mom keeps all my records. I haven't been 240 pounds since I was 14. So, in the book Motivational Interviewing, they talk about 4 different forms of change talk. One of them is disadvantages of the status quo. One of them is advantages of change. One of them is optimism for change. And the other is intention to change. And if I went back to what Victor said, under disadvantage of the status quo, we can look at this. He said, I had a hard time doing the things I would love to do. I was extremely embarrassed to have to do this at the age of 24. And then when he said, I haven't been 240 since I was 14, that showed me that there was a lot of optimism for continued change. I can just do this too. I can do the next one. So, I wrote a post about 2 years ago on this stud's website. And this was kind of before I even had read like those books, or I had experience with some of the people that I'm working with now. And I did several interviews with people who had made major life changes. And I kind of came to some of the same conclusions just by talking to these people. And what I learned was that people change to empower themselves, which kind of falls under disadvantages of the status quo. They'd hit rock bottom, or they'd wake up calls and life-altering events. So I interviewed, this was actually, I think, a year out from my undergrad, and I interviewed one of the students there. She was a competitive bodybuilder, power lifter, really strong girl, not just physically, but emotionally as well. I had no idea that this story even existed, and it has nothing to do with weight loss. It has more to do with just changing your behavior to make yourself a better individual. And she told me that she's broken down emotionally by the verbal abuse from her father. And one day he pushed me around and she vowed to never let a man treat her like that again. And that was until she got in a really bad relationship in college, and the guy did the same exact thing to her. So at that point she said she was fed up and knew that not only did she need to get stronger emotionally, but physically as well. Rock bottom, this is actually my cousin Kelly. She had lost 130 pounds, and I was just like, I need to know, why'd you do this? Like, why was it this moment? And I didn't know any of this stuff about her, but she was depressed. She couldn't play with her kids. We always used to go to Adirondacks in the summer, and she was embarrassed that she couldn't get on the horses to go on horse rides. So at that point, she was like, either I'm going to change or I'm going to die. So she had hit rock bottom, made a big change. She's still in great shape. So she's about 130 pounds down, kept it off, which is awesome. I interviewed another person who had a wake-up call. So this person had always struggled with his weight, but he got to a point where he's a healthy weight, he's been super lean, he fluctuates back and forth, but overall he's healthy. And he told me, he said, every male in my family suffers from, or every male in my family, from my 2 grandfathers to my uncles to my dad, has either suffered from or died from a stroke or a heart attack. So after his dad had his first stroke, he had a wake-up call, his dad did, and he had a chance to change, but he ignored it. He didn't address his problems and had a second, more serious stroke that left him extremely cognitively challenged. And he basically said he hated that his stroke took his dad, who considers him to be such a great man, and reduced him to so little. So when I'm talking to people, I want to kind of bring about that change talk. I want to have them start to say things like that. And again, this is from the book Motivational Interviewing. And they have open-ended questions to evoke change talk. And again, this book was kind of based for alcohol and substance abuse. But they're starting to do research to apply it to weight loss. So they talk about disadvantages of status quo again, so I'm kind of just repeating this stuff. Advantages of change, optimism for change, and intention to change. So as trainers, you can ask some of these questions like, what worries you about your weight? What makes you think you need to do something about your health habits? Advantages of change, would you like for things to be different? What would be the good things about losing weight? Optimism for change, what encourages you? You can change if you want to. And as for intention for change, what would you be willing to try? So they're just some kind of open-ended questions to start a discussion with your clients. And I'll give you, you guys are going to give me this, yeah, so you don't have to write everything down. So kind of what I'm going to be talking about is based on an old concept as far back as the 1920s from Freud, where he was talking about kind of like the battle between impulses and willpower. And he used the analogy of the horse and the rider. And he said that the rider is generally in charge, so we're talking about willpower here, but he's sometimes unable to prevent the horse, which would be impulses, the emotional side of your brain, from going where it wants to go. In the book Switch, has anyone read the book Switch here? Great book. Awesome. Yeah. In the book Switch, they basically switch the horse, make it an elephant. And they add the path, which I think is a huge, huge component for behavior change. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that as well. So they say if you want to have a successful change effort, you need to direct the rider, so direct the person analytically. You need to motivate the elephant, which would kind of be talking about bringing about change talk. And we need to shape the path to make change more likely. So one note that they have from the book, Motivational Interviewing, is that you're not necessarily creating motivation, but instead you're drawing it out of your clients. I don't really think it's possible to create motivation, but you can definitely draw it out. So if you're working with a client, maybe at the onset of initial consultation, you might ask them questions like, you want to lose 50 pounds, what would you gain from losing 50 pounds? Or, tell me the benefits of changing. Tell me the benefits of not changing. So for someone that wants to lose weight and hasn't done it, there is always going to be reasons for them to not change. Maybe they want to go, it's their social network, maybe they want to hang out with their friends do that. If they think that they have to change, they might think that, oh, I'm not going to be able to hang out with my friends anymore, I'm not going to be able to go out drinking Friday night, stuff like that. Again, this is from the book Motivational Interviewing. They break down the components of motivation to willingness, perceived ability, and readiness. And you want to attack all three of these components, or at least address all three of these components with new clients or with clients that want to lose weight. So for willingness, they talk about the importance for change, and that's when sufficient discrepancy from the actual state and desired ideal state exists. So I think everyone probably can kind of relate to this. Like for example, if I put on like 5 pounds, I wouldn't think that that's a huge deal. It's not that much of a difference from my ideal state right now. But if I put on 30 pounds, I might look in the mirror and be like, this is too far away from where I want to be. So that would kind of motivate me to start changing. So that's something that you would want to do with your clients. You would want to increase that discrepancy between where they are and where the ideal state is. The other thing is perceived ability, which is basically the confidence for change. So as a trainer, you want to find an avenue for change that your client believes will work. And as for readiness, it's a matter of priorities. You want to be willing and able to change, but not ready to. So you can probably all think of things that you would want to do, but your life is just too busy right now and you can't make that change. So I kind of want to address all of these components. So if your client's not willing, one thing that you can do is check and see if it's a motivation or an ability problem. So that's kind of like a big part. So if you find out that it's a motivation problem, what you want to do is increase the discrepancy with change talk. So if someone's not changing, you might want to say something like this. Here's just a hypothetical example. So I understand that you like to go out Thursdays. Thursday through Sunday, it's fun, and you get to socialize with your friends. But tell me more about the advantages you perceive of continuing with your health habits, and where do you see yourself in 10 years if you continue with these health habits? Amen.
What's up, Captain Mark?
What's going on? And another thing that you can do is you can cover motivation and ability by making the change a little bit easier. And you do that, this is actually a concept from the book Switch. You would get a guaranteed win. Here's me playing one-on-one with my little cousin. I'm just smoking, I'm wearing sandals, I don't even care. And the hoop was about 8 feet tall, so shut up. So that's a guaranteed win right there. So we can get guaranteed wins for our clients by shrinking the change and assigning one habit at a time. So the concept of shrinking the change is something that I got from the book Switch. And the author stated the bigger the change you're suggesting, the more it will sap people's self-control. So I'm going to go over the one habit at a time, and I'm going to give you an example of what I do with people. So for one habit at a time, what we would want to do is actually identify critical behaviors. So if we identify critical behaviors, they might have one influence and then have what we call like a cascading health effect. So if someone does something healthy, they're like, oh, I'm doing great, and then they start ending up doing other healthy things. So that would be what I would look at for a healthy behavior, something that would cause a cascading health effect. And I'm going to give you a good research example for the environment later on. So here's what I would do. I'll show you guys this manual at the end. And by the way, I would love it if any of you would want to talk to me about this, because I want to start collecting data for it so I can validate it. But I'll talk about that later on at the end. So what I would do with somebody is I would have just this algorithm here, and I would give them a habit, and the habit might be exercise for 30 minutes 2 times a week, and that might be more than what they typically would do with me or what they would do on their own. And I ask them how confident are they that they can do it. So again, this is actually something I've gotten from Precision Nutrition as well. If their confidence level is high, I say, go ahead, let's go ahead with this habit. If their confidence level isn't high, we shrink the change. So we'd say exercise for 30 minutes and 1 time per week. If their confidence level still isn't high, then they would just sit down and talk to me, and we would figure out what would work for them. Another thing, I would make sure I would track compliance here. So they would get a chart like this. I would expect 2 charts or 2 checks in a week. So they'd say on day 2 I exercise for 30 minutes, and on day 5 I exercise for 30 minutes. And that's great. After they get kind of confident with doing that, maybe you can increase it to 3 times for 30 minutes. So if your client doesn't think that they're able to change their life, to live a healthier life, you can probably address the fact that they're probably already doing something that's beneficial for their health. And then one thing, again, they say in the book Switch is don't always try to fix what's broken, find out what they're doing right, and do more of it. So this was from a research paper by Wing and O'Hill. And what they did was they looked at people that have lost so the National Weight Loss Registry is people who have lost, I think it's 30 pounds and kept it off. And they report back like their physical activity levels, that they're still within their desired weight range. And what they found was that for physical activity, 76.6% of people reported engaging in walking as like one of their mode of exercises. And I think as trainers, what we can do is widen the goalpost for what we consider exercise. It's not just something that happens in the gym. Like if your client has a job that's physically demanding, that's exercise. If your client's walking, that's exercise. So I think that is our job, to make people recognize the things that they do every single day are exercise, and they can do more of it. I think a study that best illustrates that is a Harvard study that was called Exercise and the Placebo Effect. And what they did was they studied hotel maids. Has anyone read this study?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So what they did is they had 2 groups. The study lasted 4 weeks. In one group, they told people the benefits of exercise, and they told them that what they were doing met the CDC criteria for weekly exercise. The other group, they only told them that exercise is healthy, basically. So at the end of 4 weeks, the informed group actually ended up losing 2 pounds, which was significant compared to the control, which is really interesting. And the authors kind of concluded that, oh, it was the placebo effect. They found out that exercise was good for them, and their brain made them lose weight. But again, this study was mentioned in the book Switch, and what they had alternative hypothesis, which I tend to agree with, is that they found out that they were already healthy, so they started maybe cleaning a little bit more vigorously. Maybe they ate a little bit better without even knowing about it. So if we tell people that, hey, you're already an exerciser, you're doing great, and that might help them continue with healthier habits. So again, I think widening the goalpost for what exercise is huge. And extra tips on motivation. Oh, you're on the reset. You might like this. So I had given a friend this health manual that I've been working on, and I don't want to charge him. He's my friend. But I said I'm not like gonna just give this to you for free, because then you're not really invested in it. So I said, all right, I'll tell you what. Give me $100. Finish the manual. When you're done with it, I'm gonna give you $100 back. You and your wife can go out, have dinner. And I was like, I got a better idea. I'm like, you hate the Red Sox, don't you? And I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, I hate the Red Sox. I'm like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. Once you meet your goal, I'm gonna give this money back to you. You and your wife can go out on dinner. But if you don't reach your goal, I'm donating this $100 to a Red Sox fan club. And he's like, oh, fuck that. So that's just a little extra tip on motivation before we move into other stuff. I don't know, maybe if you work with a client that's very like politically motivated, I don't know, if they're a Democrat, I'm going to donate this to like Mitt Romney or whatever. So just something that you can do. Even like if you sign up, you have a package with your client, you're like, okay, here's all your health habits. You're going to reach your goal in 12 weeks, say like 15 pounds. Once you reach it, you get this money back. If you don't reach it, it's gonna go to your worst enemy. I don't know, something like that. So basically there we would be making a loss in motion aversive. So if we moved on to, this is going to be fairly quick, but it's a simple concept. Okay. I've been overthinking about overthinking again. I think if you've ever been to, has anyone ever been to Yard House? I don't think they have one in like North Carolina. It's a beer place.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah, where they have like millions of
Yeah, they have 1 million beers.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there looking at the menu and I'm like, what am I, I can't pick which one. I've never had any of these. How can I ever pick it? So that would be a perfect example of paralysis by analysis. So when you are giving somebody a habit, you want to make it as crystal clear and as unambiguous as possible. So one thing, if someone came in, I want to eat healthier. Well, that's kind of like an abstract concept. What does that even really mean? We can prescribe a habit that you can either say I did it or I didn't do it. So it could be something like 1 cup of vegetables every meal. Or instead of lose weight, I want to lose 20 pounds by March 20th. So we're making this change and this habit as crystal clear as humanly possible. So if we're talking about, still talking about the rider, I think that this researcher, Roy Baumeister, one of his studies on willpower, basically kind of, to me, is a perfect example of the kind of like the battle between impulses and your rational brain, if you will. So what he did, has anyone read this study? Yeah. It's me. So he had his participants sit down in a room, and in front of them was a bowl of cookies and a bowl of radishes. And they were either allowed to eat the radishes or the cookies, but not both. So the experimenter left the room for 5 minutes, and the people either had 2 or 3 radishes or 2 or 3 cookies. Came back, and when they came back, they were actually conducting a real experiment. And he gave them a problem, or a puzzle that was actually unsolvable. So here are the results. If you had radishes, if you were in the radish group, you spent 8.35 minutes trying to solve this puzzle, and you did 19.4 attempts. Versus if you had chocolate, you did almost 20 attempts, and you spent almost 35 minutes on this problem that was impossible to do. So at the end of the study, the authors said that self-control is an exhaustible resource. So the act of resisting the cookies had an impact on something else that required willpower. So what they said, and this is kind of like a nice transition to how you can change the environment to help your clients, is that it's noteworthy that depletion manipulation in this study compared both resisting one impulse and making oneself perform an undesired act. It seems likely that people would have found it easier to make themselves eat the radishes if they were not simultaneously struggling and resisting the more tempting chocolate. And that kind of goes into how can we modify the environment to help people not waste their willpower, which this author said is a depletable resource. Is anyone familiar with Dr. Brian Weinstein's work? Yeah. I had lunch with him about 3 weeks ago. It's kind of like you put out kudo or condos like on the desk. And I'm like, oh, should I eat these or am I in this study right now? I ate them. So this study is great, and it shows how the environment, so if we can change proximity and visibility, that can either increase or decrease how much food people eat. So what he did in this study is he had, I think it was 40 secretaries at a college, and he would take 40 Hershey Kisses, put them in a jar that was either clear or opaque, and he would put it either within arm's reach or 6 feet away. So after 4 weeks, oh, I didn't even know that I did that. That was as fancy as it gets. Yeah. Okay. So the difference between when the candies were visible and in arm's reach compared to when they weren't visible and when they were 6 feet away is actually pretty staggering. So when they were visible and within arm's reach, they ended up eating 7.7 of these candies. And when they were less visible and far away, they only ate 3.1 candies. And then just some other things that this study said. I really like the first one and the last one. The difficulty to resist them was a lot higher when it was in a clear jar and really close compared to an opaque jar and far away. And then the effort to get the candy when it was close and clear was a lot less than when it was non-visible and far away. Some study notes from there were that the secretaries would say that 2 meters between them and the candy gave them an extra second to pause and reconsider they were really hungry enough to want or need another candy. And then if we kind of did the math here, 4 extra candies a day when it was really close and visible would equate to around 300 extra calories over those 4 days, or 1 pound in 10 weeks, or 5 extra pounds in 1 full year if we're basing it off the 3,500 calories as a pound of fat. And that kind of leads us into a big practical application for trainers, is that the environment can be changed to make the prevalence of unhealthy eating, or let's say healthy eating, likely or less likely. If you want people to eat less, you can reduce the visibility and ease of access of unhealthy food. And that kind of leads us into this problem that I'm sure everyone has had with their clients. What if your client doesn't really want to do anything to change? So they're not motivated to change, they're not ready, they're not willing, they don't feel like they're able, just nothing that you can do. It's easier to change a person's situation than their mind. So this is where the environment plays such a big role. So you got, where's the Gimme Coffee in New York City? Does anyone know?
The what?
It's Gimme Coffee. It's a coffee place.
It's a big city.
I know. I was telling Mark about it. Like when he was in Portland, you gotta go to Ithaca to go to Gimme Coffee.
I'm pretty sure it's in Soho.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it's in Soho. I'll show you that. I'm pretty
Yeah, let me
positive.
know. Let me know. I always go to Gimme Coffee every Sunday. I drive down to Ithaca. It's a nice break from Portland, where Portland's just a mess. So that's where So I drive down to Ithaca. It's great. I go to a coffee shop called Gimme Coffee. And I just get work done. I'll stay there for like 3-4 hours. It's great. It's awesome. And in their bathroom, I was in the bathroom, ready to leave, and then I see this on the soap dispenser. Like, that's genius. I'm not going to forget to wash my hands. There's a big red exclamation point on the soap. So I thought that was a really cool example of how you can just do one little baby environmental change to make people more likely to do a habit. I was about to walk out, and I'm like, red exclamation point. Soap, me wash my hands. That's how it works, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, some other environmental changes that I've just observed. This was at a restaurant when I was in Vermont a few weeks ago, and this was just right on the soda machine. I'm like, why does every soda machine not have this? And it said, if you don't want all the calories and sugar of a full strength soda, mixed with seltzer, 50-50. And then they give an example below. I'm not sure if you can see that. They say it's like drinking 1% milk versus whole milk. So right as somebody is about to fill up their whole entire cup of with soda, they get this little healthy nudge that says, we're going to save you like 100 calories here by putting in calorie-free seltzer. And it's easy. It's great, and I think that more stores or more restaurants should have that. Another thing that you can do, this is what Victor, the person that lost 100 pounds, did. He increased exercise visibility. So he changed his environment to make exercise more likely. He put his treadmill right in his room. So he sees his treadmill when he wakes up, he sees his treadmill when he goes to sleep. It's just a constant reminder that he should be physically active. Another thing that you can do is you can use action triggers. So that's where you're actually using the environment to help your clients engage in healthy behavior. So what I like to do is, if someone isn't really having like a great breakfast, I would say, let's just replace whatever you're doing with a protein smoothie. So I had a client that every day she would go with another professor on the way to work, and they'd stop off at a cafe, and she would eat unhealthy food. And we kind of came to the conclusion if she had like a bigger breakfast or something like that was healthy in the morning, she'd be less likely to overeat when she got to the cafe. So I recommended that, hey, let's start out the day with like this fruit protein smoothie. And which is like the easiest thing, but she wasn't sure that she could do it. But I knew, because we talk about coffee a lot, that she uses a French press. And I'm like, so in between the time when your coffee is blooming and when you pour that water in, you have a few minutes of free time, right? Let's use when you start making your coffee as the action trigger for when you make your smoothie. So in like the 2-3 minutes where she's waiting for her coffee to be ready, she would make a smoothie. And she's like, I can do that. And then the next morning, she sent me the picture with that, and she said, big ass smoothie. So I'm like, thank you. So So it worked. And I think that Brian Wadsink sums up the environmental, obviously he does because he's the guy that talks about it. He sums up why changing the environment is such a great idea in this 2004 review paper. It's called Environmental Factors That Increase the Food Intake and Consumption Volume of Unknowing Consumers. And he said, personally altered environment help individuals more effortlessly control their consumption and lose weight in a way that does not necessitate the discipline of dieting or the unintended consequences of external intervention. Here we go. So when I mentioned critical behaviors, this was one environmental change that, this is when I was talking to my chair, I was talking about this study, and I'm like, oh, this is just great. Like, I don't know why more people aren't doing this. So what he did is he created a partition shopping cart. And there was a few studies within this one paper, and I don't think it's actually published yet. But what they did was in the first study, they partitioned a shopping cart, they cut it right in half with duct tape, and they gave people instructions. They said, in the front of your cart, it's going to go fruits and vegetables, and in the back of your cart, anything else that you want. So there's two groups, experimental control, went through the shop, went through the grocery store, and when they came back, they would check their receipts to see what they had spent. So the experimental group actually spent more than double the amount of money on fruits and vegetables than the control group. So in their first study, which was kind of just rough and crude to get an idea of what's going to happen, is that there was 121.6% increase in the amount of money spent on fruits and vegetables just by providing a partition shopping cart. In their second study, what they did was they either made the partition bigger or smaller. So there was one partition that took up 35% of the cart, one partition that took up 50% of the cart. And they also gave the participants, I guess they weren't really participants, they had no idea what was going on. I'm just going to say participants though. They gave the participants a flyer that either said, research shows that eating more fruits and veggies and less meats and treats is good for health, or more of a cost-saving focused flyer, where it said research shows that purchasing high-quality foods reduces spoilage and is overall more cost-effective. So what happened there is they found that when there was a health focus, people spent more money on fruits and vegetables. And within the health focus, as the partition got bigger, people spent more money again. So people spent more money when it was 50% versus when it was 35%. But they found that when they were at it and they had a cost-saving flyer, the partition shopping cart didn't really do anything to the amount of dollars spent on fruits and vegetables. So why I thought that this was such a great idea is because it really hits all of those components that I started talking about in the beginning from the book Switch. It addresses the path, it addresses the elephant or the emotional brain, and it addresses the rider. It addresses the path by shaping the environment. They made purchasing of healthy foods very salient. They knew that that's what they were supposed to do. As for the elephant, they actually said this in the research article. They said the partition carts influence sales. They could do so because they suggest a shopping norm. So, oh, everyone else is doing this, I should probably do this. As for the rider, provided crystal clear directions on what to do. So they knew exactly where they should be putting all this food. So as for application, as trainers, what you could do is provide your clients with shopping cart blueprints. There's something, even like a small sheet of paper that looks like a shopping cart. You can just partition it off and be like, here's where your fruits go, here's where your vegetables go. I actually tried to make something with a big piece of cardboard and a massive sheet. It just looked ugly. So I gave up. I don't know, maybe someone smarter than me can do it. But other things that you want to do is you want to encourage clients to shop at stores with a health focus. So if you know where they're shopping, and it's more of a cost focus, I guess around me would be like Aldi's. You guys have Aldi's. Aldi's is like a cost saving store versus if I was you guys have Wegmans.
No.
We know it.
Good.
Shit out of
If any of you come up here, I'll just go to Wegmans. Right? So Wegmans, just kidding. So, yes, you would want to encourage clients to shop at more of a Wegmans than an Aldi's kind of store. Another thing that they found in that article was that people who went to the grocery store and they were hungry, had the partition shopping cart had less of an influence on them than if they weren't hungry, which generally makes sense. If you're hungry and you're going into a grocery store, you're looking for convenience. So encourage your clients to not shop hungry. This is some other really interesting research, and a lot of it is actually a couple of decades old, and it's by a lot of it's by Marie Red and John Castro. So what they looked at was how the influence of being with other people, or how being with other people influence eating behavior. And in one of their studies, they were looking at, as the number of people that you're eating with increases, how does that affect how much that you eat? So they said when one person was present during a meal, the meal size increased by 28%, the meal size increased by 41%, 53%, again 53%, 71%, and 76% respectively. When 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 or more people were present. So the more people that were present, the more you ate, and the more the person ate. And that wasn't necessarily because they're eating faster or anything like that. It was because they're sitting at the dinner table longer. So there was a socializing effect. So people sit at the table longer, they tend to eat more. They did another study, I think this was actually by both of them, I think it was by Marie Red and John Castro. And they instructed people to either eat how they normally eat, to eat alone, or to eat with multiple people. And they found that when they ate alone compared to when they were told to eat with multiple people, people actually ate 212 less calories per day than when eating with a bunch of people. And there's other cool research out there that shows that the amount of food that someone that you eat with reflects how much you'll eat. So for example, if you and I are sitting down at a dinner table and I eat 20 cookies, you may eat 14 cookies. But if I eat 3 cookies, you might only eat 2 cookies. So from that perspective, you want to encourage your clients, if they're heavy eaters, to eat with light eaters. Then you get that application, eat alone, Stephen Heinsberg.
Sad.
So the application there, no, don't socially isolate your clients. But what they can do is if they're eating in big groups of people, only wait 10 minutes before eating. Have 2 glasses of water. Because if you know they're going to be sitting at the table for a long time, you might as well wait like that 10 minutes. Other things that you can do is if, again, people are socializing, just have food out of arm's reach. Again, if we went back to that study by Brian Watson, it was out of reach, they ate less. So if there's like bread right in front of your client, they're probably going to grab for it. But if it's at the other end of the table, they're not going to like get up and go and get that food. And we'll just end the environmental section. Again, you guys can kind of look at this here. We'll send it out. Yeah. So in this review by Brian Watson, he has a lot of great suggestions that you can apply to your clients that deal with all these different categories. So one thing that you can do for looking at the eating effort, you want to increase the effort to help decrease consumption. So that, again, we look at that chocolate study. It took a little bit more effort to get up and get the chocolate, so people ate less. So things that you can tell your clients to do, store tempting foods in less convenient locations. And actually another thing that you can do is make healthy food more salient. So put fruit and vegetables at the dinner table. Put healthy food in the front of the fridge instead of the back of the fridge. Or you actually put the unhealthy food in the back of the fridge. Put an ice cream carton in the basement where they don't see it all the time. Again, if you're eating with others, you can do things like you can have your clients decide how much they want to eat prior to the meal instead of during it. That's another thing that you can do. Don't ever have your clients like stand in front of the fridge and eat. Have them put it in a cart or in a bowl and then go sit down and eat. Discourage distracted eating. So again, people are going to sit down and eat in front of the TV. That's just going to happen. But if they do end up doing that, maybe again, pre-plan their meals so they're not just going back and eating more food. Say whatever you put in your bowl is what you're going to eat. I don't know why. I don't know why. It just looks cute. Yeah. No, it's really cute.
Who made those burgers?
Good job. Yeah. So as for the salience of food, again, eliminate the cookie jar, replace it with a fruit bowl. So wrap tempting food in foil, and that would make it a little bit less visible. As for structure and variety of food, you would say decrease the variety of food. So if your clients are going to a buffet, don't put like 8 different kinds of food on your plate at once. So you're probably going to try something else, try something else, try something else. And then at the end, you're probably going to end up eating more. Decreasing your plate size. Tell your clients if they have 15-inch plates, get 12-inch plates, get 12-inch plates, get 10-inch plates. It's going to suggest to the norm they're going to end up putting a little bit less on their plates. As for stockpiling of food, what you can do is you can have your clients put in individual serving sizes into little packets. So instead of just like eating out of a cereal bowl or eating out of a cereal box, have them put a serving in little baggies. One last thing that I want to talk about is dealing with accountability. So this is from the book Crucial Accountability. sure everyone here has had times when you've asked your client to do something and they haven't done it. So how do you deal with that without them having kind of slip into defensive mode? And from that book is just kind of an outline of what you can do. And the steps are to make the conversation safe, identify discrepancies between what they said and what they did, ask for permission to talk about the broken commitment, discuss barriers to the broken commitment, and then identify whether it's an ability problem or a motivational problem. So a conversation like that might look something like, I don't want you to think I'm criticizing you. You've been doing great so far, but looking at the sheet, it seems like you only committed 50% to the health habits we discussed when you thought that you could do it 80% of the time. You say, do you mind if we can discuss this? Start the conversation, ask them, could you tell me more about why this habit was more challenging than you perceived? And then from there, you kind of start the dialogue into whether it's an ability problem or a motivation problem. And
Yeah.
that's how I go to the bars.
Yes.
Yeah, you do.
It is on Hot Street.
So I'll show you guys this quick. And again, like I said, I would love to talk to anybody about this. So at Portland, I teach a personal training class, and a lot of the clients that come into our students are weight loss clients. So I wanted to put together a manual that the students could give to their clients, where they would have 24 full weeks and they would follow these habits up until then. And we would track how much weight they lost, we would track their energy levels, how they feel, compliance to their habits. And what I really would like to do in the end, I would just, it's kind of like validate this and see how it actually works. See, maybe it doesn't work at all. Maybe it works great and it's something that we can apply to a lot of people. So I mean, I put my email address up there. If anyone ever wants to talk to me about this, if anyone wanted to help me validate this, that would be, or disvalidate it or make it better, that would be awesome. So I think that you all do a great job. You guys, this is why I'm here. You guys do a great job of taking people that have never really exercised before and making them love it. So that's why I've asked Mark to come and speak at Portland, because I love it. So again, if anyone wants to send me an email and talk about this, I'm all open to it. Are there questions?
How much time do we have?
I don't know, because you just want to go right into it? Corey, how much time do you think we need?
For what?
Hands on.
Not much. We can go through it quick. It's not anything crazy.
What do you want, we're gonna have access to this manual?
Yeah,
Or
if you would like to help me validate it, or
Got it, okay.
then I would just talk to you about it. Yeah.
Got it.
So, and then we go from there.
How is it, I guess my question along with Stephanie there, so you've been using this in your personal training class you're
We're
teaching?
just going to start using it.
You're getting ready to
Yeah,
start.
We're just getting ready to start using it. Yeah,
Cool.
because the students come back in the fall,
Yeah,
so they'll get their clients within about a month. And there's about 16 of them, and I've talked to other people about helping me use this. I'd eventually like to maybe modify it, so some are for personal trainers, some are for physicians that have people that need to lose weight. So my cousin is a PA, and I sent her my original draft, and she's like, no one's gonna understand this. Like, it's too complicated. You have too many words. And she just deals with people that, in her setting, you don't even want to hear the stories of why these people come. Actually, you all probably want to hear the stories of why they came in, but it's bad. So these people aren't like exactly highly educated that will come into her. So it needs to be as simple as possible. So that's what she was like. She's like, you need to come up with an algorithm that's like super simple, like this.
sure.
Because it was too wordy before. So that's kind of like what she recommended to me. So I'd like to see it in the personal training field and the medical field. And I would like to see it get better and improve. So maybe we find out that a habit that I give someone just doesn't do anything, so we ditch it and we can think of a better one. So
I love it.
yeah.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Let's take a manual that you would follow or something you would give to your clients.
So the end goal for this manual is that I would be able to have like one single session, hour session with somebody, talk to them, help them draw out their own motivation, give them the manual, let them take control of their own health, but then I would also be there to have them ask questions for me, like, okay, Thursday night at 5 o'clock is when you can send me emails, and I will answer your questions Friday, something like that. Or text text me Thursday night or and then we'll figure it out right there. So that's the end goal. Like,
Consultation.
yeah, spend an hour with them, let them take control of their own health.
So I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but one of the things that people, or some people are really big on is like one habit at a time. You absolutely have to do it. Okay, my bad. So,
Yeah,
but what is your opinion on that? Like, in which cases, or are there any cases where you think it is okay to focus on more than one thing at a time?
You know, they mentioned that in the book Motivational Interviewing, right at the beginning of it. They say some people, for this strategy is going to work perfectly. For other people, you just need to tell them exactly what to do, and they'll do it. They don't need anything else. Like, I've had a client where I'm like, you just have to do this, and she's like, okay. And then, like, 3 months later, she's down 40 pounds, and I just talk to her like that long. So I think it would have to depend on the person. But yeah, that's actually something that I would like to see, because they say it takes like 28 days for a habit to form. And I only put 21 days on here, again, kind of for the purpose of my class, because it doesn't really actually go for 24 weeks. It goes for 16 weeks. And I kind of want the students to see the results. But yeah, what we do is we do one habit at a time. And I talked about this too. I'd like the habit to be something that provides a cascading health effect. Let's see. So one of them is like eat only in one place at work and at home. So by doing that, it's not necessarily telling somebody that, oh, you have to eat this, or this, but it's kind of making sure that, oh, I'm about to snack on this, oh, I have to go over and sit down at my table, and then look down at it, and is this a good idea? So it gives someone a little bit of time to think about that. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I get the one habit a day thing. I know that in our past we had a nutrition program that looked at that, and while the goal there is to just build like ridiculous levels of compliancy, we had a complacency issue where people were like underwhelmed. You actually remember that fuel?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, they're not really doing anything. We're like, no, literally, you're just drinking fucking water. But people struggle with just, I don't know if it's like
I feel like that at home.
Yes.
yeah, like how do you address that?
So I actually thought of that exactly. So I'm like, yeah, this is gonna get boring.
Right.
So within the sidebars, you have like a weekly assignment as well. So that keeps them a little bit more engaged. So say assignment 1 corresponds to day 1. So on day 1, you just look around like your environment. Do I have even like a candy jar or something unhealthy that's really close to me that I'm gonna end up eating? So like within these 3 weeks, you do have a habit, but you're also doing other mini assignments within it. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of just boring to do that. Yes.
In your manual, there's something interesting about introducing new habits and not like saying change something you do, right? Like mentally like come in something new, not don't do this. And in a very short amount of time, which is one habit a week, a lot of times people are like, I already drink enough water, great, that's one habit. We give you 2 to give them that like sense of like I am doing more, even though the water wasn't really anything that they weren't doing well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is something about like at the end of 21 days or 30 days, that person will be able to say like, in 30 days I have done, and they're going to probably be surprised at the amount of new habits they brought in. So do you have something in there about like check-ins along the way? I know it's only a 21-day program, but like let's touch base and like just like mentally let you see like all these new habits you've introduced that are not even normal, and like they might not even be able to tell where their old habits went.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's a really good idea. So like someone really would sit down and like talk to me, and we would go over that.
Yeah, but like, well, I wasn't saying like I'm not trying to give you like a suggestion, but you were saying like along the lines of one habit a day might seem underwhelming.
Yeah.
The one habit that they're given might be underwhelming for them, so like it might be like a second one that you just like they just like know you're like, oh, we don't do this fine. It gives them that mental like rah, you did what you said you do. Or, I don't know. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I was just curious what you have in here as like the end of the 21 days. What did you do?
Yeah.
Like what's all so they.
That's a good idea. That'd be a good to like reevaluate like anything else that changed during that time period. Yeah, it's a good idea.
I wasn't trying to.
No, that's why I'm like bringing this in
Okay.
there, because like I said, it's a rough draft, and I would love to get ideas, and we're all on the same
How
team
long
to
do you
make
want
people
your kids
healthier.
for? How long are the students?
It's a full semester, so it's like 16 weeks. But what happens a lot of times with them is they have 15 sessions with their client, but a lot of times their clients end up hiring them after. So it can prolong. So it might, the class is 16 weeks, but they could end up going for, like my first client when I was a student, I had her for 16 weeks, and then we actually continued on for a while after that. So they always have that option, which is good, because they get paid. So,
Yeah.
This sounds like a really amazing practical laboratory that you've created for your students, which is fucking awesome. And I can tell just based on your apparel, you're a big fan of superhero ethos, and with great power comes great responsibility. So when it comes to looking at change talk and motivation, what's your take on ethics and emotional manipulation?
Yeah, there's a book called Nudge that I listened to this summer, and they talked about that a lot too. They're kind of like, you can't make people you can't just make people do that, but you can give them a little bit of a healthy nudge to do the right behavior. So it's where I'm not telling them that they have to do, like, you don't have to do this. Like, if you don't want to do it, then that's fine. And in that book, they kind of talked a lot about it from like a political perspective. Like, if you have the name of the voter first, like, you're more likely to vote for that voter, which is like, you can't, like, that's unethical.
Yeah.
If you're first, you're more likely to get voted for, especially in like local elections, stuff like that. So yeah, I totally, I don't want to manipulate somebody. But if I can nudge them to do like a healthy behavior where they still have obviously their freedom of choice, and that's where I think the environment plays a massive role. So like with that picture with the soda machine, no one's telling them to do it, but they see it, and now they're more likely to do it, and it's good for them. So I think it all depends on the situation. Because if it's something that's going to benefit that person, then will you really call that manipulating? Versus in that case, I don't know, maybe. But again, it's good for that person versus a situation where you're making them like spend more money on something that they don't need, or voting for somebody that's a dick.
I actually have a question for the MMF team. So Harold, you mentioned that people were underwhelmed with that. They got kind of complacent. Like, it's really boring. What did you guys do to combat that?
Not enough. I mean, I will say that, like, so give context to those that weren't there. Fuel was our attempt at doing a precision-y thing. I actually think a lot of the challenge with Fuel was just like, I don't know that I think it was more of like, in some ways, like practically a marketing issue about sort of keeping the program present, and the way we set it up in retrospect would have been better to do a cohort and then close it down. We wanted to do an on-rolling admission, which I think in retrospect wasn't as good of idea as if we'd just done 40 people once and then were able to stay on them. So I think in our attempt from a business perspective to allow us to offer a rolling admission, we again proved the efficacy of the value of doing it in cohorts, which is sort of how we do it in Snatched. So I think a lot of the challenge was related to that. Now, having said that, I do think there was a larger challenge in the industry at large, and this is like, this is the most interesting conversation to have right now, is the challenge between sort of the precision, like you have to do it for 2 years, and the sort of more traditional go-to-war, Tom Venuto, Zig Ziglar, Craig Ballantyne, will just do everything what I say, do it for a week, and then you'll have millions of dollars. Which is, like we said, and what I love about the motivational book, the point where it's like, for some people, they actually don't need that, right? So it's the challenge to my mind is we almost need to develop, and my dream is one day we'll have some sort of algorithmic survey whereby which we take people through a process of inquiry, and based on their answers, like, all right, cool, so for you actually need to start with Beth Wittig, right? Or go talk like Steph Wilberding, right? You have like emotional sabotage issues with your relationship with food, so we have to clear that out first. For so-and-so, you have the motivation, you just don't have the knowledge, so you just need education. Okay, so-and-so, you're emotionally good to go, the foundation is there, but from a habit adoption perspective, you're not going to be successful with the go-to-war thing, and you emotionally don't need those big wins, so we're going to take a slow and steady burn. And I think at some point, and it'll probably be fucking precision because they're fucking geniuses of data, I think we'll find some way of making an algorithmic survey that will put people in the appropriate box. Because the business challenge that we face even here, and you all know this, how often does someone show up and you're like, man, you need to go to a soul body system, and they're like, nope, I want you snatched. Nope, I want you snatched. And certainly the way we've sort of, from a value system, I think tended to approach it is we're your Sherpas. So our thing is we don't tell you what to do, we'll offer you our options, we'll let you know our perspective if you want it, but we'll let you try your journey. And then, what happens quite practically is, generally speaking, when we know from in advance it's going to be an issue, we're lucky in this space because they do snatch, they have success, then they start feeling anxiety when they lose that structure, then they're ready to go spend that time with Beth, then they clean it all out, and then they're in a much better place. So I can't thank you enough for this, Justin. This shit is like so fucking on my alley. I will also say instantly for the team, For those of you that are not sure yet what to read for next month, you will be unsurprised to hear that we have copies of all of the books that were referenced upstairs. So should you choose to read any of them, I know a lot of you have read a lot of them already, but it's just like chock full of like awesome information. This was a great like introduction to this info. Yeah. You guys are great. I love you guys.
Great. Is this something you also do this with as well as like a training program? Like that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's actually funny. Most of my time is spent, myself and Cory, is spent with athletic teams. But like on the other hand, helping people get healthy is like totally our passion. So I mean, again, I speak for most people, both love working in athletics and both like being people healthy. He does a lot more one-on-one stuff and group stuff, and I'm kind of more of the athletic stuff. But I always like to kind of keep on rotation, like 3 one-on-one clients. I'll do some distance stuff too. And a lot of it's kind of just like I'm trying to figure out what works the best. So and that's the goal. I don't think I'll be in athletics for the rest of my life. But this is kind of more where I see myself going. But having fun while I'm doing it.
I would also just love to sort of throw out for MFFers, particularly those that are very in the snatch role. I would love to like chat with you guys about this because some of this I think like appropriately challenges some of what snatched is. And my plan for 2016 is to at the very least rewrite a lot of the emails. I think right now are like the big rock that just needs to be reformatted visually, if nothing else. But I would just be curious to have a dialogue with you guys about any of these things that we can maybe take a step towards, right? Because I still, from the business perspective, like the big wins we get with it, right? So I don't think we want to throw that out. But like a lot of these things, I'm just be curious to like brainstorm with you guys. Like I love the idea of like the scale of 1 to 10, how likely to do that. Brian, I'm sure you saw a lot of great things we're both already doing and maybe can integrate into the consultation process. Can be really powerful for us. And lastly, the other thing I will offer to MFFers, and you guys too, if you're burning with the interest to know, the Unicorn Diet is a new dietary approach that I wrote for mybroadwaybody.com. And I think, to my mind, it's the most sophisticated work I've done because I think it marries a lot of what works about Snatch while incorporating a lot of this more habit-based approach. So it's a shorter timeline. It may be a disaster, and then Matt will celebrate my failure because it might be neither feast nor famine, but it is yet another attempt to write like, okay, how the fuck do I solve this challenge? So if anyone's like curious to read that or get an advanced copy, do me a favor, send me, I'll just send it to the whole train team and be like, here you go, and
what are the goals of the Unicorn Diet? I understand this in the context of
the Unicorn Diet essentially becomes like an 8-week curriculum of 2-week habits at a time, but we're really big rocky with the habits. Like it's like, so instead of the long burn of precision of like, 2 fish oil per day, it's like, we're focusing, I think, on like protein out the gate and veggies out like right after it. So it's like somewhat like fuel, but we're really going after things that I believe in 8 weeks will lead to very demonstrable physique change, so there's a motivation to keep going. I think the challenge of the Unicorn Diet and all these pre-processed ones are you're missing sort of the high-touch thing, right? So like Steph, that's such like a great point you made there about like what is sort of like the check-in process. The Unicorn Diet, because ideally it's existing in a lower-touch world, I don't know we'll ever be set up for that, but I'm very intrigued about how we can apply this sort of like motivational interviewing, like scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to do this? I just think there's room for more of that stuff here. Like I said, I don't know. When you read the Unicorn Diet, we might not be able to do that because like it is what it is. But another thing that I think Precision has done recently, which is interesting, more of an integration of self-determination theory, where now you get to choose which of the habits you want to pursue, so there's more of a buy-in, right? So you have an opportunity now to make a choice of which habit you want to do, which again might not be appropriate for a low-touch, mass available Unicorn Diet. But that's another thing I just want you to percolate in your brains, and we will continue to have a dialogue in the Grand Unicorn Experiment.
I think there's so many of us that automatically can go into type B for Snatched to get like more nuance. I mean, like aspects of that to start playing with like off the bat, like
for sure,
because they're always looking for. Because let's be honest, a lot of the type B'ers actually like. I don't know. I feel like there's so many fun nuancey things.
Yeah, and you.
Our Snatch, we have a type A, which is like counting calories, other macros, things like that, and the type B is more these general guidelines. And sometimes it's hard, depending. They're like, what can I do better? And it's like based upon what you said, like you're kind of nailing, but they're looking for other things to tweak. And so this comes from, especially like your little habit, like daily habits. Like those are fun things to like interject for those people. Like what's around your office at like what's within arm's reach, where you sit, like things like that. They're just. It's cool coming out from a completely different perspective of looking at other habits that could be sabotage some of their success that they're not even aware of because it's stuff that we just don't even talk about. So
I was.
What Mark said too, if there ever was an algorithm to, I think that personality type would be a quick survey on that.
Sure.
Would be huge. Yeah. Because if it's like,
You probably
I
might be
just want
distant.
to do it, then just do it. Yeah. Versus if they kind of need to do it slowly.
Yeah, if you're D, get out of my way. Go.
And that's like Results has done that with their like behavioral assessment on how they coach things, which is interesting because I know like when you just come out of Snatch and sometimes they're not a regular class for the first time, I'm like, great, what are you working on? They're like, I don't know, like tell me what to work on. Well, pick something to work on. They're like, fucking tell me what to work on. And like, there's like, yeah, they're like, I don't know. Like, well, you can like do anything movement wise. And we see that with like different people respond to different cues from different people. Yeah. Like, is very algorithmic now. In the future, that will happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd be curious to know more about what exactly Results does to integrate that. I can do some research on that. Like a lot of people I know going to my all-day seminar I'm doing in Chicago are Results people, so it's always a trick, right? Come to my seminar so I can ask you questions about what you're nailing. The other thing I'd recommend if you haven't had a chance to look at, which I think Lori, did you read Fat Loss Happens on Monday? Is that you, Jeff? Yeah, Fat Loss Happens on Monday is Josh Hill's book with Dan John, and I think it's another savvy approach at taking a hack at, can I approach an evidence-based behavioral change paradigm, but set it up in such a way that we're going to get dramatic enough physique results that people are sort of inspired by seeing those physique wins as opposed to behavioral
Can you
wins.
say that one more time?
Fat Loss Happens on Monday.
Right.
And
The paradigm, paradigm.
yeah, essentially it is a version of a habit-based approach, but it's definitely much more with like getting like physique results quickly under pressure, under mind, because I think that's certainly another part of the equation that changes, right? So we sometimes deal with people like, Josh Young, you're gonna be naked in a Broadway show in 8 weeks, we have to get you there, right? And I think that's a challenge we have in the industry at large. So often the conversation is influenced by Henry Cavill getting ready for Superman, right? And these people that are superhumanly disciplined in this superhuman environment, willing to do whatever they need with this very precise, huge, challenge if they don't get there, this amazing reward if they do get there. And, we see that sometimes with some of our ninjas where it is actually a logistical thing for your job and your career, but more often than not, we're looking at New Yorkers that are just utterly impatient or just not even interested in having a conversation with you if you're telling them it's going to take more than 8 weeks. So the continued challenge, which I think we all find so satisfying, is how do we sell them and market them what they want, but secretly sort of give them what they need. And I just think it's the funnest way to spend your life.
Yes. So riffing on what you mentioned earlier, so one of the pushbacks against online coaching especially is that accountability isn't quite there. And it's kind of interesting because Snatch, I'm not super familiar with it, but it sounds like it's kind of a melding of in-person and online accountability email. So do you have kind of a prioritization list in your head where it's okay, this would be ideal, and then kind of work your way down for this checking in with me every day in person, checking in with me once a week in person, email, and then Precision Nutrition, they have their little whatever, you click in and grab whatever. So.
I don't do online programming, really. I thought that was just I want to see somebody work out. They can send me videos, but I want to be there in person if I'm training. But when it comes to this, I do that because I don't want them to hurt themselves, and I like being very hands-on on coaching. But with this, I'm no one's gonna hurt themselves if they don't eat a couple of vegetables. So for habit changing and this, my ideal goal would be to talk to them once. It could be in person, it could be in a Gmail chat. I've done it on the phone too. And just have them go ahead and take control of their health habits, and then just have them know that I'm there. If they have Victor, he's at a point where he's down 100 pounds, and he's getting worried. What's gonna happen? It's starting to slow down. I'm afraid that I might end up going back to my original weight once I start introducing a little bit more calories. And then it's just he would send me these messages, and I'd say, hey, let's get on the phone as soon as you can, and let's talk. Let's address these issues or these worries that you have. Let's make you feel a little bit better and give you a good strategy about that. So the answer, I guess, is it depends. Again, if I'm doing coaching with exercise, I don't really want to do online. I want to do in person. If I'm doing stuff like this, my goal is that they can take complete control of their own health and just go about it and just know that I'm there. If they need me, I'm there. I'm providing accountability, but I don't know if that answers that.
Well, maybe this is a little more salient for like these people, and if this is like totally non-people, you guys can like convict me with pitchforks. But like, would it be? Is this something where it could be helpful to have people to say come in once a week and be like, you know, check through their diet or whatever, and literally it's like 10 minutes, like, oh, cool, we did this, blah blah blah, all right, get out of here. Like, or do you think it's better just to have it where it's more kind of on them? They just have to do it like and be accountable themselves.
I think that if they could come in, like if they could come in and talk to me, then absolutely. If they could come in and spend 10 minutes with me, but if they're like 2 hours away, I guess that's kind of less realistic. But I will use this for like the individuals that I'm training too. So like we can spend 10 minutes talking about this like before a training session, something like that. But yeah, I guess it all really depends on location and how far away they are.
I would throw in that type of stuff would also come in with what the programming is and what your pricing structure would be based on, you know, the excessive need on top of that.
Yeah, one of the challenges we certainly run into here is, as it is, we're responsible at any given moment for 1,000 people. They're responsible for just the people in this room. With the advent of MyBroadwayBody.com and new spaces, like there's a very real chance that'll get up to 10,000 people that like, you know, 40 to 50 of us are responsible for. So which is why I'm obsessed with sort of ways of scaling it, realizing there's going to be limitations. The answer, generally speaking, will be do our best to give the people that need high touch, like the high touch and unfortunately more expensive programs, and then offer these sort of more scalable low touch solutions for those that tend to be just need more in the way of information. In the interest of time, well, I'll let Harold say something, but then I was going to suggest that we want to head downstairs, do the practical, and have more conversation. Before we do that, can I just ask, I know there's a few people in the room that I don't think the whole team knows. Yeah. So, new friends, would you kind of just stand up, tell us where you're from, and just, I guess, tell us what brought you here today?
I guess that's just me.
No, actually, I don't think you guys have been met yet. But you'll stand
Can we
up.
ask what color underwear they're wearing too?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'll show you that.
Please do.
All right. Well, I'm wearing, in honor of Mark Fisher and I's picture.
Oh, yeah.
I wore my Calvin Klein.
Oh,
thrift
yeah.
store.